NPR has an amazing map that shows the decline of unions in the United States. So it's an interactive map here, but I'm going to show you the earliest portion of the map, which is 1964, and then it goes all the way to 2014. It's the most recent time where we have data. So take a look at this. This is the union rate in each state. So it goes state by state in the year 1964. For everybody listening on the live show and you can't see it, I'll just give you some examples here. You have California 33%. You have New York about 37%. Florida 14%. They've always been kind of a lower union rate. As you'll notice there, the South historically has a lot less unionization than the North does. But you can get you get the gist of it there. You can kind of soak in the union rate in each state on your own here. Now, again, this is 1964, so take note of what you're looking at, and now let's take a look at what it's like in 2014. Holy shit. Look at the tremendous drop-off pretty much everywhere. Pretty much everywhere. I mean, that is just an absolute drastic change. So California there is 16.6%. New York, which still has the highest rate of unionization in the country, has dropped off pretty significantly. Well, actually, New York was, 35%? And Pennsylvania was about 32%. And today it's 24% and 12%, roughly. And yeah, you can see there's just been an all-out assault on unions. And by the way, most of the places that still have a decent percentage of unionization, it's public sector. So there's been a decrease in every one in public and private sector unionization, but the biggest decrease, of course, has been in the private sector. So overall, listen to this. In the 1950s, unionization in the U.S. peaked at about 35% of the workforce was unionized. That's still not nearly enough, 35%, but that's a pretty sizable percentage of the U.S. workforce that was unionized. That's the 1950s. Today, 10% of the workforce is unionized. And again, most of that is public sector. So 35% total unionization rate, a decline all the way to 10% unionization. That's not like a natural, organic, trend. That's a trend that happened because of money in politics, for example, and because of an outright war on unions, because unions represent the middle class, and the owner class, the elites, don't like it. So they rig policy in their favor and to crush unions. And you see there's a direct correlation. The decline in unions goes hand in hand with, for example, the fact that corporations used to pay 33% of the federal tax burden. Corporations paid 33% of the federal tax burden. Today they pay 9%. So they paid 33% in 1952, 9% today. And those taxes were shifted on to the middle class. So when you don't have unions fighting for the middle class, when there's a decline in unionization, there's an increase in policies that are punitive towards the middle class, that screw over the middle class. That's just one example. Another example is that middle class incomes have shrunk, and we don't even need to go back all that far for this one. Since the year 2000, middle class incomes have shrunk 8.5%. So the middle class is worse off today than they were in the year 2000. How about the fact that, we talk about this all the time, half the country makes $30,000 a year or less? These are things that, if you have a higher rate of unionization, you can fight these things effectively. If you had unionization, people have better benefits, they have more vacation time, they have health care, But when you have a war on unions, there are fewer policies that look out for the middle class, and the owner class runs roughshod over the people. And when you look at the studies, it proves it out. So, for example, in states that have so-called right-to-work laws, you have workers on average make about $1,500 to $2,000 less per year, and they get worse benefits, of course. So they say right to work. In reality, it's right to work for less. The states that have unionization, they make $1,500 to $2,000 more, and they have better benefits. So this is what happens, man, and you have big-time political donors, corporations, wealthy individuals, who have made it like this on purpose because they know it benefits them, and it's at the expense of working people. Well, this is one of the things we have to fight against, and we have to increase union membership. We have to set policy in a way that benefits the middle class, and then everybody's better off. So card check is just one example, but there's other examples. Stop the fucking so-called right-to-work laws. Canada, in the NAFTA renegotiation, Canada said, you need to stop the right-to-work laws to the U.S. They didn't say it because they care about American workers necessarily. They said it because it gives an unfair advantage to the U.S. where Canada has, laws that more favor the middle class, and corporations want to ship the jobs out of there as a result of that. So they go, you got to make it a fair playing ground here. You can't fuck over your workers so bad that it incentivizes corporations to go to the U.S. over Canada. So you got to stop your right to work laws. And they're right, we do. We can't have this race to the bottom garbage. Because guess what? Canada's right that, the corporations want to come to the U.S. over Canada because we treat our workers more like shit. And the corporations want to do that so they can make more profit. But guess what? Corporations also want to send more jobs to Bangladesh than they do to the U.S. because there's even fewer regulations, fewer rules, and lower pay over there. So this is why you need rules. This is why you need the government to say, no, if you outsource your jobs, we're going to tax the shit out of you and make it so that you wish you kept the jobs here. That's what effective government is supposed to do. But we don't have a government doing that. We have a government that's totally bought and owned by the rich. It needs to end, and we need to push for pro-worker policies.